Welcome to my channel. My name is Olga, and this is the first video on basics of Vedic astrology. A while back, I recorded a course on this topic, and I decided to release it now on YouTube for you to watch. In this course, we cover the basics: signs, houses, and planets. So you don't have to have any background in reading astrological chart in order to understand the material in this course. The course will be compiled in a playlist eventually, so you can binge watch it. In this lecture, we'll begin with a mantra to Ganesh, which is very important when we study anything Jyotish related. We will look into what is the birth chart and give a brief introduction what is Lagna and how to find your ascendant. Second lecture is just a tutorial on how to build your chart. Is just follow along the steps I show and you will be able to start reading it. The third lecture will begin using signs. So this course comes with a workbook that is very important for you to practice what you learned in the class, and also a bunch of handouts that are extremely useful for you to fill out the workbook and also again start thinking and practicing, because this knowledge, it's not going to be useful unless you practice it. And the workbook will allow you not only read your personal birth chart, but start making first step in interpreting and reading birth chart of your children, family members, partners, and whatnot. So happy learning. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe and give a like. Before we begin studying Vedic astrology, I invite you to chant a mantra with me to Ganesh. Ganesh is the patron deity of Vedic astrology or Jyotish. He is the guardian of knowledge, and he's somebody who assists us to receive this knowledge in a way that is beneficial for us. He's also a remover of obstacles. So anytime you face obstacles in life, you can turn to this mantra. This is optional, but nevertheless, I invite you to chant with me 3 times. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Welcome to the first class on Vedic astrology basics. Let's identify what is a birth chart, which is the main thing that we will be studying in this course. Well, first of all, birth chart is the map of the sky at the time and place of your birth, and it's very relative to the position of the stars or planets at the location of your birth. So it's very, very important. Birth chart shows how the planets were positioned against the zodiac belt, which is the zodiac signs, at the time where your soul touched the earth plane. So birth chart is a manual to your life that you were not given in the beginning, and it helps to know it, just to understand yourself better and to understand how you function in this world, what makes things work for you and what things are more challenging for you. It shows your talents, your abilities, your strengths, some of the lessons you're going to have to go through in this lifetime. And in Vedic astrology specifically, there is even a way to predict events based on your birth chart. Predictive astrology is outside the scope of this chart. We are going to be mostly learning about the specifics of your psychological wiring and how you operate in the world. However, this is a big part of Vedic astrology, using the chart for predictions as well. Most likely you're very familiar with Western astrology, and this is more popularized here in the West. However, we should identify what is the main difference between the Indian astrology or Vedic astrology. Sometimes it's called, in Sanskrit, it's called Jyotish, and Western astrology. Two systems, they basically look at the same things. They look at the chart, but through different lenses. And the main difference, the lenses difference, is the zodiac, the way we calculate the zodiac. So Western astrology uses something called a tropical zodiac, and in Vedic astrology we use sidereal zodiac. And the main difference is in calculation, how calculate how the zodiac, how the planets are positioned against the zodiac belt. So, tropical astrology or Western astrology is connected to spring equinoxes, to the seasons of the year. They assume that on the spring equinox, which is around March 21st of each year, the sun is always in Aries, regardless of where it is in the sky. This is just the assumption they have agreed on, that on the March 20th, the sun is in Aries. However, astronomically speaking, there is something called the precession of the Earth, which is the gradual shift in the degrees that happen relative to the zodiac signs. So this shift over the last 2000 years accounted to 24 degrees difference. And sidereal zodiac, which is the zodiac we use in Jyotish, takes into account this difference. So if you take any astronomy app, I like to use app called Sky on my iPhone. And if you point your app against, look at the sun at the time of the spring equinox, you will see that the sun is actually positioned in the sign of Pisces right now in 2024. So if you take your so, taking into account the Earth's precession, sidereal zodiac considered this 24-degree difference, and it actually looks at the actual position of the planets against the zodiac belt, which is more astronomically correct. Right now, because of this difference, the sun is actually in Aries sometime around in April, in the middle of April. So, what this difference means for you specifically? Well, if you used to think that you are Capricorn or you are Scorpio, it's going to be a little bit different in sidereal zodiac. And most likely, there is a high chance that your sun is actually positioned in the different sign from what you used to think. Here I've listed the position of the sun in different signs and the dates these signs correspond for the sun in Vedic astrology. The chances are also that some of the other planets might be in different signs if you look into your birth chart in sidereal zodiac. So don't be surprised if you open your chart and you create your chart for the first time and you're going to have a little bit of identity shift. If you're used to think about yourself as a certain sign, the chances are that you are actually in a different sign astronomically, if taking into account astronomy. But in my experience, I've met a lot of people who told me that they don't resonate with their Western sign and they always wondered why this is the case. And well, this is why, because it's actually most likely your sun position is in a different sign. What are some of the other unique features of Vedic astrology that makes it different from Western astrology? So we use a different, essentially it's a different system altogether. And the way we approach it comes from the Vedas. So it has this like a larger philosophy behind it, which is based in karma and dharma, that basically all actions or all deeds in the past life, they are going to create a reaction and going to create consequences in the future. So our birth chart represents a map based on our previous deeds in previous lifetimes. It created certain reactions in our psyche, in our consciousness. So this represents a different way of being in this lifetime. That's why we are acting in a certain way. That's why we are going through certain lessons. So aside from having this like deep background in philosophy in the Indian culture and this karma idea in Vedic astrology, there are specific tools that we use here. One of them is nakshatras or lunar constellations, which is a subdivisions of the every sign into smaller divisions that give much deeper, much more symbolic information about every specific planet that is positioned in the specific sign. So, for example, if your moon is in Aries, well, you can have different flavors of Aries. You can have three different types of Aries, which is different nakshatras. We will not be going into the nakshatras specifically in this course, but just so you know, it's out there and you can go take it into a step further and explore a little bit more about it. We use something called dasha systems, which is a system of planetary periods used to predict events in life. Dasha systems, there are many different dasha systems within Vedic astrology. One of the most popular ones is called Vimshotri Dasha, and it is basically, it shows a sequence of events in your life. So I like to explain it as the we operate with 9 planets in Vedic astrology, and one of these planets will have a prominent role in your life, like it will take a center stage and it will light up your chart in a different way. It will bring your focus to a certain area of life. It will trigger certain events in your life. So this is part of predictive astrology. Aside from those two, we also have something called Vargas or divisional charts. The Vedic astrology is highly mathematical, although all of astrology is highly mathematical, highly analytical, and a divisional chart takes your birth chart, divides it into smaller parts, and gives more fine-tuned and precise information about different areas of your life. It can be about relationships, career, partnerships, children, your parents, your some challenges in life, health. Many areas of life can be fine-tuned by looking at the Vargas. This is also more advanced technique, just to let you know it exists out there. But in this class, we are going to focus on 3 main components of your birth chart, which are very basic, but nevertheless will give you a very strong foundation to understanding how the chart interpretation works, and will help you to make the first steps in chart interpretations, which is a quite a creative process, and it takes a little bit of a skill to be able to understand what signs, houses, and planets are there in your birth chart. But the most important thing is, how do we blend these 3 components together in order to come up with chart interpretation? And one of the first concepts I want to introduce you is the ascendant. Ascendant is called Lagna in Vedic astrology also. So it's one of the most important points in chart interpretation. If a Western astrology takes into primal focus the sun position in your chart, in Vedic astrology we focus on the ascendant, which is basically the sign or the point in the sky that represents you, yourself. And of course, it is of paramount importance, of the most important thing. The ascendant is basically the time and place. It's a basically degree of the sign at the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. So your ascendant always will be in the first house, but it will occupy a certain specific degree in your first house. So ascendant is important because it determines the placement of your entire horoscope and how the rest of the 12 houses are laid out in your chart. So in the next class, we will be diving deep into the science in Vedic astrology, and I'll see you then.